Hey everyone, Roy here, and here we are again. Sacral Chakra, session 4 of 6. And what I want to do is have the conversation I've been promising to have the last couple of sessions. We need to have the conversation, the sex conversation. We're going to have it. Okay, so now, what way is this conversation going to go? And why are we having it? Is really when I say I want to have the sex conversation, I want to talk about the act of sex and the experiences within it. And then when we take the sex element out of it, is what are we really looking at? We're looking at the peaks of pleasure. If you remember the last couple of sessions, we've been talking a lot about balancing out the tendencies of pleasure and pain. So we're looking at the peaks of pleasure today. And the sex as the metaphor for life is all the peaks of the pleasure, the limits of how good we can feel, and going into those higher states of consciousness. Yeah. So as we have the conversation, we'll take the sex out of it, and we look at the actual experience itself, and then we look at it through the level of life force that we're connected into, that we're engaging in. Yeah. And we also need to talk about the difference between inhibitions and letting go of inhibitions. Is we move more into the sensuality of life and the sensuality of our own experience. And then from sensuality, we move into intimacy. So really what we're looking to do is to connect into the sacral chakra and connect into our life force and come into the sensuality of that and come into the intimacy of that. So that's really what we're looking to do. And I'll take you through a practice on that today. Yeah. But having the sex conversation is great because what it also does is that it can bring up our inhibitions. So if you squirmed a little bit when I said we're going to have the sex talk, is, well, let's look at what that really means as we go through it, yeah? Because if you find you're inhibited with a certain level of pleasure, a certain level of joy, is that same inhibition will layer out into other areas of your life. What I mean by that is I spoke previously about somebody who achieved all their goals in life, but yet still isn't happy, still can't find that joy. And I suggested that part of the reason may be is that there's a limit in themselves of how good they can allow themselves to feel. So no matter what success they experience in life, is they can't fully enjoy it because they have this ceiling that they have within themselves, and they don't let themselves go above that. So now when it comes to the pleasure and pain in life, is the restrictions or the limits that we put on that very much dictate the way we'll engage with life. And part of the previous conversations is their ability to learn how to consciously release our pain. So that when we have experienced a couple of pains in our life and we consciously go through releasing them, whether it's a pain in the body, whether it's an emotional pain or a mental pain, the process that we go through to release that, once we learn that, well, then we're not so afraid of pain anymore. And again, it's not we're going around looking for pain, but we know that we have the ability to release it. So therefore, it opens up our possibilities and life force to other paths of life, other experiences in life. Pleasure is the same thing, and a lot of times people don't really realize it. Again, I would say this, I'll put this question out in teacher training: who knows their pain threshold? All the hands go up. There's who knows their pleasure threshold? Half the hands go up or less. So people aren't so aware of that. Now, I think part of that reason is that in life for survival, it's important that you hear about the pain and the bad things, because they're the things that are going to cause most harm. It's not so important that we hear about the good things so much. It's the things that we want to avoid to stay alive. Generally, we're listening out for more of those. It's just I think it's part of our instinctual nature to survive. So in many ways, we can be set like that. So to rise above that, again, we've got to activate our consciousness, and we've got to look directly at those experiences and look to how we can raise our energy through them and raise our consciousness, so that we find that balance within ourselves where we can release ourselves into life and release ourselves into the full experience of life, which means releasing ourselves into the pleasure and pain of life and coming into that beautiful receptive state where we're just neutral, where we're just in that receptive experiencing of life itself. and we're not caught up in the push and pull of it. And it's letting go of that struggle is one of the keys to it. And the last section I talked about that is that field of charge that is our struggle. And that as we start to let go of the field itself, is all the things that we were holding in, like a tension of 3. All the tensions that we were holding is when we drop the field, all those tensions drop away. And then some will return, we drop them away. And some will return, and the ones that keep returning, they're the ones you need to look at. They're the ones that are potentially truly uncomfortable, truly painful, and that you need to figure them out a little bit more mindfully. You've got to go in and go, what do I need to actually work out here to release it? Because a lot of the times we carry around a lot of empty behaviors. And what I mean by that is that every time we make a commitment in life, we take a slither of our life force and we attach it to that commitment. And then we get on with our lives, and there's lots of these commitments, lots of these attachments. And if we don't call back our life force and we allow our life force to stay attached to the commitment, that commitment may be over. Old jobs, old friendships, old places where we lived, old times in our lives. You know, lots of things that the behavior and the experience of it is over. And we still remember it, and we can still, learn from it, or feel hurt from it. But when we keep the attachment in it, it's like we're maintaining the behavior, yet it's an empty behavior. So there's a lot of times we're going around inhibited because the amount of commitments we have and the way we're attached to them sends our life force off in so many different directions that at some point it gets really difficult to make another commitment because we've so many commitments out there. And a lot of the commitments can be empty behaviors. The commitment, the life force of it is over, that experience is over, but yet we didn't call back our life force back to ourselves. So we can get that sense of feeling depleted. So now what we're going to do today, at the end of this session, the practice, is we're going to begin to refine that source energy feeling, that connection to our life force. We're going to refine that source connection. We're going to do it with awareness and energy. We're going to hold that space. We're going to pay attention, because we all want attention, so we're going to pay attention. And then we all want to be felt, so we're going to feel it. Now, a nice way I described it before is that whoever comes into the room gets the heat. This meditation that spontaneously came to me myself, and it's part of my life force experience now, is that I'm in a room, I'm sitting in a room, I'm in a comfortable chair, and I'm at ease, so whoever comes in gets my full attention, but there's this beautiful fire, lovely heart and a fire, and whoever comes into the room gets the heat. And it's very simple, whoever comes in gets the heat. There's no discussion on right or wrongs, whoever comes in gets the heat. And the heat is the warmth of the life force. So what we're going to do today is we're going to refine that heat. We're going to bring it to a beautiful spark and really attune to the source of our life force, really connecting into the spark of life within us. And we're going to begin to amplify that. And we're going to begin to radiate it. And that's where we're going. Okay, now to do that though, is we talked a bit about the hurt of things earlier on in the last session. So, we got to be able to be in that spark and feel the tenderness or the aches within us, whether they're physical, emotional, mental, but equally is the pleasure of things. Is that as we begin to radiate our life force, there's a warmth that comes from it. It's a beautiful feeling. And then the question I'm going to have for you is that how good can you allow yourself to feel today? Now, let's go a little bit beyond the normal limit. Like in a posture, you go to the edge of the posture, you go to the edge of your alignment, and then you're in micro movements and you just go a little bit beyond it, that you can, it's a bit more challenging, but you breathe into it, you soften into it, and the space you've moved into it, eventually that becomes stable, you've opened up a little bit more space. And again, you've built more strength, more flexibility, where in this practice is you're in your life force, you're radiating it out, and when you start to reach the edge of it, the limit of how good you can feel, can you allow yourself to just feel a little bit more? A little bit better than you might have felt before, or a little bit better than you feel today. And then hold that space and let it just radiate until that becomes part of your connected space. Okay? So that's what we're going to do. So we're going to have the pleasure conversation. So we're going to have the sex conversation to begin to look at the steps and refine what are the steps of pleasure. What's a first pleasure? How do you limber it out? As it's going up, what does it feel like? Okay, so we're going to have that. And then I think I've said everything I wanted to say in the sense of the preparation is setting up the space. Okay, so setting up the space is, okay, let's just get into the sex part of it. Okay, so now think about this is you get sexually turned on. Is what happens in that moment is all your senses heighten, okay? And then there's this feeling that comes with it. Okay, now the feeling that comes with it is it's arousal, okay? Now put the sex down. We're going to keep having to put the sex down in this. When arousal is not sexual, it's sensual. Does that make sense? Is you're coming into your central nervous system. Is you're coming into your senses. So all your senses become more sensual. So there's an arousal in that. So you're arousing them. But the question is, what are you arousing them with? Does that make sense? Now when it's sex, it's that whole idea of the pleasure of it and the connection of it and the engagement of it, the act of it. Does that make sense? So there's all that, but now when you bring it to the sensual, now from the sensual, let's go into the intimacy. Is what is that sensual feeling that we're feeling that is intimate, that is truly intimate? Does that make sense? Now that intimacy is literally is that life force within us. It's that feeling of aliveness, and that feeling of aliveness is like a spark. And what we're doing is that we're activating the spark. We're activating the flame. We're expanding the flame a little bit. We're turning the flame up. We feel our life force a little bit more. And through our senses, we sense the sensuality of that. Okay? And that's what's happening when we get turned on. And again, take the sex out of it, that's what's happening. Now think about this as we go through this experience. At that level of engagement, what other things do you do in your life that give you something similar to that give you that sense of arousal, that bring you into that sensual connection, that give you that intimacy of joy and excitement in yourself? What is that? Where is that? Again, keep putting the sex out of it. That's part of the discipline, is putting the sex out of it, coming into the sensual. Letting go of the inhibitions will allow you to come into the sensual. Why is that a challenge? Well, think about if you're not used to it, if you're not used to just allowing yourself the freedom to feel the sensuality of yourself, is one of the reasons why that happens is because the inhibitions suppress, clamp down, restrict. We're not allowed to do that. We're not allowed to feel that. It can't be that way. So a lot of the times things become mechanical, and even in postures is people making the shape and mechanically in their body rather than in the senses and the sensuality of their body. Because when a person's in their body, truly in their body, is they move very, very differently than if they're just mechanically in their body. So mechanically in the body is like a way of locking ourselves out of the body. So the inhibitions lock us into patterns and ways of being that can be very restrictive. And we can get used to that. So now when you say, okay, let's take those inhibitions down, it literally can feel like getting naked. It's that sense of being self-conscious, that sense of being seen, that sense of it being revealing. So when we come into our sensuality, is literally we feel ourselves from the inside, and we can feel the intimacy of that. So it literally can feel like a nakedness, and not a physical nakedness, an energetic, a mental nakedness, a spirit nakedness, where literally it comes right in. So there can be quite a bit of discomfort. If you're not used to it, it can take it can take quite a while to settle into that. In the sense of you got to let it in a little bit and let it in a little bit and let it in a little bit. And part of it is you're slowly letting go of the inhibitions. It'd be no different than dealing with a really sore muscle or a joint, and that you're looking to get into the tenderness of it and pressure and release and gently massage it out, pressure and release, gently massage it out, and bringing yourself into the muscle or the joint, bringing yourself into the pain of it, and then release. A little bit of pressure and then release, a little bit of pressure and then release. It's that gentle massaging effect that allows you to release it out. But part of it, it's the way you connect into your body, it's the way you engage and touch with your body, it's the sensuality of it, is what brings the energy to it. Now think about this, we all want attention, so now you're paying attention to the muscle. We all want to be felt, so the pain wants to be felt. The more the pain is felt, the more the pain releases. The more the pain is felt, the more the pain is released, without getting into the charge, the struggle of the fight or flight, that building the charge and resisting it. And then we either attack the muscle, run away, or pretend that it's not there. We're trying to ignore the pain, rather than actually facing it and opening up a greater space and consciously bringing life force to it. Does that make sense? So now, the inhibitions can be the same. Is feeling where your resistance is, and then let a little bit of it go. Feeling where the resistance is, let a little bit of it go. Okay, so that can be part of it. Now I know some of you will probably just jump in and go, no problem. Others, this could be your challenge in it. So now, if you're looking to have a bit more fun with it, is you'll see on the channel, I have the Raising Yoga Energy beginners course, and this is one of the things that I get into where we're engaging with the elements, and we're engaging with the moving of the elements, and again, it's very much about exploring new movement in the body, and it's about letting go of the inhibitions and letting yourselves move in a little bit more of a free form of the body. It's just another way of coming into our life force and connecting to the elements, and it just brings us into our body. So that's actually a really great course to follow to begin to practice letting go of your inhibitions, just at a very simple physical level in your ability and willingness to move in different movements. Okay, so that's a very practical way to do it. And we do freestyle with putting on, it's like a silent disco, where we freestyle with a bit of music, so you can do that too. Great fun. But could be quite challenging for some people. So this is what we're doing here today, is we're engaging with this conversation. So if it gets a little bit uncomfortable at times, recognize that, again, that's what's your resistance there, what's your discomfort, is it the inhibitions? And think about why we're having the sex conversation, because really it's about getting past that limited view of the sacral chakra, getting past that limited view of what we can perceive as sexual energy. Where really sexual energy, the real energy is the sensual, is getting into the intimacy of our own life force and the creative nature and power of that. And there's a drive in it, and that drive drives us. So that when we feel that turned on energy, it's that arousal, and it's our life force, and it's the drive of our life force is engaged. So that's why it feels so nice. But now it's getting into a beautiful sense of just feeling it. Where else in your life do you have a form of that? What other moments in your day do you feel that you've got that little pep in your energy, that you feel that your life force brighten up a little bit, begins to radiate a little bit? What rooms does it happen in? Is when does it happen? Is there anybody else there with you? What are you doing? Is there any other situations in your life that give you that kick? And again, you could be into sports. You could be into a sports club. You just love it. Again, it could be yoga. You just love going to your yoga. You get excited. But it could be anything. It could be anything at all that gives you that. Now, part of the challenge is allowing yourself to feel it and then put the attachment down. So that's what I'm saying about sex. is think about that turned on feeling. And then put the sex down, that's the attachment, and just feel the energy of being turned on, the life force of it, the sensuality of it, and the intimacy of it. So if you do it now, is get yourself turned on, okay? Are you doing it? Okay? So now think about this, think about that feeling. As you center yourself in your life force, this is a brilliant practice to do. This is where we're going to one of we're talking about activating the sacral in this course. So I'm driving this whole 6-week course to a point where what you're feeling now, if you're turned on, you got that really turned on feeling. Imagine that you left that on, and then you just let it rest into your center, let it rest into the background of your center. And that it's just your life force, it's not attached to anything. It's just humming away in the background, where you can feel that arousal, you can feel that drive, you can feel that connection. You're constantly in the sensualness of it, in the intimacy of it, but yet it's not to the fore all the time. It's just humming away in the background. So it will just change how can I say it? Literally, when I say hum, it's like a hum. It's like a hum. Now imagine having that as you go about your day. How would that feel? And bring it with you. And then it's how you touch things. Your sensuality is with you. Is the way you touch, the way you listen, the way you hear, the way you feel, you smell, your taste, your awareness, your sense of consciousness itself. Everything is just that little bit crisper, a little bit brighter. Things radiate just a little bit more. And it's beautiful. Now you might think, boy, that's a bit mad. It's not mad. Roy, that would be distracting. It's not distracting, because remember, it's not the sex, it's the life force. And it's the sensuality and the intimacy of it, it's the connection of it. And then just let it be in the background. It's not in the foreground, it's in the background. What I mean by that is that it's just one of those things that you just let be inside you. You don't have to do anything with it. That's the wonderful thing. You don't have to do anything with it. The nicest thing about it is that it's just there. What do you have to do with it? Nothing. But then as you go about your day, you notice the effects it has. There's these spontaneous engagements with your day. You're just more creatively engaged with what's going on around you, because you have that lovely switched on feeling. And that's what it is. You're activating your sacral chakra. That's what I want you to get out of this six-week course, is to get to that place, is to get to that space. And part of that is, again, we have to look at the pleasure and the pain, because that's like in all the chakras, is the three tendencies are it's like the bottleneck. Is that the more we attach to the pleasure and the pain, is we get into the struggle, and then that struggle creates a tightness, and that tightness is like a bottleneck, and it's very hard to move things through it. So when we let go of the struggle more, it's because we're not attaching to the pleasure and pain, and we're allowing ourselves to come into the free flow of it, the spontaneity of it. Now think about coming into the sensuality of it. You're living the life force of it, the experience of it, and then you're living it with awareness. But the touch and the engagement of it is you're able to see much more clearly what's going on, because you're more present in it, and your life force is more present. So therefore you can see what you need to see, and you can shift away from the hurt story and move more into the truth story, into the connection. Just experiencing yourself with less struggle. That's the simplest way to describe it. Think about your life as it is now. What would happen if you didn't change a thing in your life? In fact, stop trying to change. Stop trying to change anything. It defeats the purpose. Give it up. It's a waste of time. Okay? However, what would happen if you just let go of struggle? Not change, but let go of struggle. You can let go of struggling, little by little. You let go of a level of struggle, another level of struggle. If you let go of struggle, how would you view the life you're living now? If you weren't struggling in it, how would you view the life you're living now? Or the level of struggle in your life was being reduced, how would that change the perception of the life you're living now? Okay, and then this is the point I'm trying to make. Rather than trying to change your life, is the more you let go of struggle, you're repositioning yourself within yourself. You're repositioning yourself. Rather than observing your life from the hurt story, you're repositioning yourself to your center, and you can be constantly in that, and you can see the truth of things. You can see what's going on around you, and you can see the connection of things and the pattern of things, and then the purpose and meaning of things. So you're starting to see that from that place within you. So rather than trying to change everything, is adjust the position with which you hold yourself, the place with which you are within yourself. And that will dynamically create transformations. And things will happen rather than you trying to change, things will happen. It's a different experience. What do I mean by that? Think about you going around just feeling your life force, and it's humming away in the background. How will that change your engagement with your life? All of your life. Not one room, all the rooms. Not one person, all the people. Not one situation, all the situations. So you're doing this one thing has an enormous effect. This one little thing has an enormous effect. And you can slowly let it radiate. So the more it radiates, you're bringing it into one room, bringing it into another room, another person, another situation. So slowly but surely, you're able to radiate it all in every room. So it incrementally expands out. But you're still doing just one thing. Not 100 things. You're not trying to change 100 things. You're just doing one thing, and that changes the place with which you're observing and engaging your life from. And in that, you become more spontaneous, more creative, more playful. You just come more into that natural sense of yourself. And then in that, things happen. You're engaging with what is happening rather than being in the struggle with it. You're able to free flow in that, and then you notice yourself spontaneously doing something different rather than trying to change something. So newness comes in, life force comes in, because you're holding the space open and you step into the living of it. And in that, you start to notice the transformational experience that's gone on in you, and then that layers out into your life, and then you'll begin to notice that your perception of your life changes, things in your life begin to change, but it's not because you're trying to stop things and do this and pull this apart and struggle with it. It's because you're coming to a place of oneness, and then you're bringing your life force up. And in that, things happen. Things begin to transform. And you will recognize those changes, but it will be from a place of connection, from a place of oneness. Okay? So, fascinating. So now, what happens when we get into foreplay? Foreplay is, think about it, what happens to the sense of touch? It heightens more. It's like a limbering session in a yoga class. Is the skin becomes more sensitive. The senses really begin to heighten. We begin to get hotter. Does that make sense? And we begin to apply more pressures, and we begin to get into the sensuality of those pressures and the intimacy of those pressures. Does that make sense? Rather than the mechanical actions. Think about the act of sex that's from a place of disconnection. Is that action is very mechanical. It's very physical, and it's like where's the energetic connection? Where's the sensuality of it? Where's the intimacy of it? That truly, that's what's most arousing when you get into that. Does that make sense? And what you're doing is you're able to take your life force, and now what you're doing is you're drawing it out. You're elongating it. It's like extending your spine. You're elongating your spine. It's like you're lengthening your breath. You're elongating your breath. It's like your concentration. You're elongating your concentration. Now you're activating your life force. Now you're beginning to elongate your ability to hold it for longer, and then feel that expand out. And that's what foreplay is, in the sense that we're building the energy. It's getting higher, but it's because we're elongating. We're going longer into it, and we're drawing things out. So foreplay is lovely when it's drawn out. There you go. Who's going to argue with that? So you get the idea. Now think about this in your everyday life. Where Where in your everyday life do you experience that type of energy? Where in your everyday life do you experience that type of energy? And again, I've already said, well, the limbering part of a yoga practice is coming into your muscles and feeling them and getting right into your center of gravity and coming into that lovely tone and release. That's a very sensual experience in the body, coming into the joints and the mobility of the joints and feeling them and breathing into it. That's very much coming into the sensuality and the intimacy of your body, as opposed to mechanically going through a sequence of movements and not really having too much mindfulness about it. It's a very different experience. So again, there's the sex part of it. Take the sex out. Now, where else do you experience that type of life force? Yoga practice is an example. Where else? I think runners might get it. I'm sure they do. When you're running and you start to feel yourself limbering out, the body's loosening out, everything's heating up. You know, you feel yourself coming into your body, you feel yourself settling. You get into that nice rhythm, and then you're in that nice rhythm for a little bit where you just feel everything begin to incrementally build in a peak. Okay, so now there's lots of places where we can get that. So where are the rooms? When in the rooms? People, is there anybody there? Is the situations in your life? Is where is that? Now, if you go, God, I don't think I really have that. I don't think I really have that. Well, then what's one of the things you need to work on? Is again getting turned on, is moving into that space where you build everything up, you're increasing your energy levels, you take the sex out of it, you let yourself feel all that sensual connection, you know, and then you bring that into different rooms of your life, to different people with your life, different situations in your life, and you start to activate that life force in your life. And again, it's nothing to do with sex. I'm going to keep repeating it. There's nothing to do with sex, but it has everything to do with sensuality, and it's letting go of inhibitions. And a simple way, Roy, what do you mean? Give me an example that I can really understand. Is how you greet people. How you greet people. Is I like to touch hands. I like to shake hands. How's it going? But I make a point. It's a sensual connection. It's a very physical, energetic connection. I genuinely look to meet the person in the handshake, if that makes sense. So how you meet people. Now again, this could be just that experience of the look in your eye, the smile. It's the attentiveness and the engagement with which you give a person. Does that make sense? It's how you driving is an example. You can mechanically drive, you know, and you're in it, or you can be driving and you can be just completely in the different pressures of your body as it's working. So it's the pressure of your body in the seat. It's the pressure of your feet on the pedals and how it changes. It's the pressure on the steering wheel. It's the pressure on anything you touch, that you're in those pressure and releases, and you're in the sensuality. You're really feeling it. You're really connected to it. That's just a simple example. You know, is you could be walking down the road with a buggy and you're pushing your baby, you know, and it's feeling the pressure of the buggy on the path. It's those bumps and lumps and the different pressures going up the hill. All that is getting into that life force connection. It's feeling those pressures and just being in the sensuality and intimacy of it. It's the engagement with which you do it. So you can do it anywhere you want it. Does that make sense? And it's just bringing yourself into that connection, and that's you beginning to just hold your life force, hold your sacral, and begin to just limber it out into your life in the most mundane of things. So now think about what I was saying about, you know, changing the perception of your life from the place you put yourself in. Is imagine going around in the mundaneness, and we all have the mundaneness of our lives, that going around feeling the living moment of that and the connection of it is not so mundane anymore. And mundane can be a truly enlivening experience if we choose it to be. It just changes our perception of it. Okay, so now, so what happens after the foreplay? Okay, the pressure gets a bit stronger, the friction might come on, the rhythms get deeper. Does that make sense? The breath gets longer, the body gets hotter, excuse me, the focus becomes sharper, and literally we're coming to those peaks of sensation. So think about the pleasure zones and then the sensations of that. So we're starting to feel it more and more and more. The excitement is coming in. Does that make sense? There can be it goes from an arousal to an urgency. There can be an urgency in it, if that makes sense. So now think what's happening there is that, think about the drive of our life force. That's the drive of our life force building up our energies, building up the life force. Now think about one of the most creative things we can do is to create life. Does that make sense? So the whole act of sex is part of that creating new life, if that makes sense. But then there's also the sensuality and the intimacy, the living of it. Is now take the sex out of it, is now think about in your life, where in your life do you have that urgency of excitement, where the pressures and the sensations and the engagements are so enlivening and you're so in it and it's just amazing, you're loving it. Does that make sense? Where is that? Have you got them? The rooms, the people, the situations. And again, excuse me, again, taking the sex out of it, you could be in a football team or a camogie team or some team, and that when you're in the practice of it, the training of it, or you're in the game of it, you know, and you're right in there, and you're in the full play of it. There's that fullness of radiance of life force, the abundance of it. You'll see it on sports people all the time. They're really getting into it. Does that make sense? I love doing the dance floor. I love the dance floor. I love when my sucking practice, because I just love feeling that aliveness. I love that radiant energy. Now you could also be having this walking up a mountain, sitting on a bench. And in that, what you're doing is you're just sitting into yourself, feeling your own life force. It's just coming up in you. It's just radiating, and you're just connecting to life around you. And the connection that you feel to life around you, it is just beautiful. You just get that beautiful high intensity of just feeling alive itself. It's absolutely beautiful. Now the question is, where is that? Where is that in your life? Where are those rooms, people, situations? What are you doing? And if you're saying to yourself, God, I'm not really, do I have much of those? Am I engaging with that? Well, think about it. What would happen if you started to practice raising your life force like that and feeling that, and then just bringing it into different rooms of your life? Now again, this is a higher experience. So you got to pick your moments, so to speak. So again, sometimes I can't be just sitting on a bench and I'm just totally in it. It's beautiful to do. Sure, again, nobody's going to know what you're doing, so that's fine. If you understand me, because it's so intimate for you, it's so strong. Again, the rooms, the people, the situation. If you get that, like again, if you're in a sports club and you're in the football or in the yoga, you know, or anything, is what would happen if you consciously start to rest into this, rest into the connection and the receptivity of it, so that it's not such an outburst, but it's more an internal resting into it, that you're radiating that energy. Does that make sense? So think about it. Think about where we're going in this practice. For this 6 weeks, we're just looking to activate our sacral and just get that life force engaged and begin to engage with holding that life force within us and letting it radiate. But as we go more into it, you can see where we're going. Okay, so now is, you know, that point of no return. That moment when you know the orgasm is going to come. You're going to orgasm and you absolutely know it's coming. It's on the way, because you've passed the point of no return. Here it is. You know that point? Okay. So now, what would happen is when you come up to that point, and you pause, you ease off, and you just let it go ahead of you. And you come to that point again, you ease off, and then you let it go ahead of you. So that you don't go over that point of no return, is you let it go ahead of you. Is what's happening there. What are you extending out? You're extending out the pleasure. But really what you're doing is you're extending out your life force. Your ability to bring yourself to a peak, to a fullness in the radiant life force, and then you're just allowing yourself to then extend it out. So there's a real discipline to that. And in that, what you're doing is you're learning how to, remember the conversation about the pain threshold and the pleasure threshold? And the stronger our pain and pleasure threshold is the greater amount of life force we can hold within ourselves, channeled through us, and not struggle with it. So we're channeling it rather than bracing into it. So now our pleasure threshold is like a posture, is your ability to go into a posture, feel the limit of your stability, you've got your mobility, you've got your flexibility, and then you go in to your body in the posture as long as you can hold those three, and in that you're meeting the edge, and that's where it's most strong, most intense, and that you're holding the edge of that, and then you're incrementally expanding at the edges, creating more space in your body. But when you hold the three of those, stability, mobility, flexibility gives you adaptability. So the more you move in all the different postures of your practice, is you're becoming more and more adaptable, but keeping the space of your body open. Do you understand that? So now this is no different with your life force and your sacral chakra, and coming into the sensuality of yourself, coming into the intimacy of yourself, and then raising your energy up, feeling that life force come to a peak of intensity of pleasure, and then holding the edge of it. So when you reach that point of no return, before you go over it, send it away. Let it go away a little bit. And then get used to holding that peak. So now this is a peak that you can hold. So now you can hold a bit more. And now you can hold a bit more. So your ability to feel greater and greater levels of pleasure are wonderful. That you can expand it out more and more. And that what you're doing is that you're centering yourself in the life force, in the sensuality and the intimacy of it. Okay? So take the sex out of it. Keep taking the sex out of it. Every time you have to take the sex out of it, so that you can just be in that peak. Now think about what those peaks are. As you start moving into those higher states of experience, is that think about what an orgasm is. Think about the euphoria of it. Think about the bliss of it. So again, going into states of bliss, but we take the sex out of it, think about in a meditation, going into a state of bliss absolute, going into a state of euphoria, that you're bringing your energy levels to a point that they just break out beyond all the boundaries, and you go into that boundless state. And again, that's what's happening in an orgasm, is that the orgasm is there to release. It's to release. Literally, that's what it's like. Crying is a release. Smiling is a release. Being receptive and neutral is a release. An orgasm is a release. So that we build the energy up so much that we just can't take it anymore, that we have to release it. So literally, is we're letting go of all the boundaries. So that's where that euphoria and bliss comes in the orgasm. Is we've let go of all the boundaries. So we've taken our life force and then we just let it all the way out, if that makes sense. And we're coming into that boundless state for a short while. Okay? For a short while. What would happen if you wanted to hold that space for a longer while? That space can become a bit more normal, that you have access to it. Again, taking the sex out of it is that you can bring yourself to those states of feeling a radiant life force. That it's not just nice, it feels really nice. God, this is beautiful. Oh my God, this is amazing. Oh my God, is this happening? This is just so nice. Oh my God, oh my God. This is euphoric. Okay, so you get where I'm going. So this is euphoric, and that you can hold those states of life force and euphoria, but yet you can hold it, and that you're just channeling that engagement. You can channel bliss, that you're able to go into a state of bliss, completely surrender to your life force, completely surrender to the universe of life, and that you're in the bliss of it, but you're channeling it. You're not doing it to release the pressure. You're channeling the experience to be the experience itself. So now you're being the euphoria and the bliss for its own sake, rather than as a release to release the pressure. Because that's a different reason for doing it, if that makes sense. So again, we're shifting from the think about this whole conversation with inhibitions, is how many inhibitions do we need to release so that we can be in the freedom of that. So the inhibitions in the body, so that we can come into the freedom and the sensuality of the body, come into the intimacy of the body. And there's nothing more beautiful than to meet somebody else in their intimacy and their sensuality of their body, and the two energies coming together. That's the beauty. That is beautiful. That is a beautiful experience. And then going through those higher peaks together and sharing them and holding them. It's a wonderful experience. Now again, take the sex out of it. Now think about engaging in that experience without the sex. Keep putting the sex out of it. Just in that quality of experience on all its different levels in the rooms of your life, the people and the situation of life, and all the ways it can express itself. So just think about your friends and just that different level of connection with the friends. A nice way to describe it. It'd be like shifting from conversations to communication, because that's what will happen. It's like doing postures mechanically. When you start to come into the sensuality and intimacy and really coming into your body, it's like mechanically we're having conversations where really coming into your body, it's a real communication. So now think about all the conversations you're having in your life. It's great to have just conversations, chats. But what about how much real communication are you having? What would happen if you started to have more real communication, a little less conversation, but real communication? And that's part of the life force and the living experience, is going deeper into that connection with people, going deeper into just the experience of everyday life. But we're in the living of it together, the connection of it. And again, so it's in 100 little ways. Does that make sense? It's the way you look, it's the way you talk, it's the way you touch, it's the way you listen to people. Think about if you're sitting and you're truly listening to somebody, and you're listening from that place where you're really genuinely in it. People will notice that, because in that, what you're doing is you're opening up your life force to that person, because you're truly receiving what they're saying. You're truly listening to them. You're truly feeling them. You're truly looking at them. And you can do it in a nice, again, it can be just in a nice, engaged, energetic way. So there's lots of, not lots, but some examples of how this would have an effect on the quality of your life and the transformational experience of it. And simply it's because you're changing the position with which you're experiencing your life, and then the engagement of your life force, how you're using it, is that adapts. And it's very much into the connection of that. So now think about this, is the orgasm, you have the bliss, you have the euphoria, and what happens after that? Okay, I did joke on the teacher training course when I asked this question, because I always go into this the cigarette moment. Everybody's having a cigarette. Okay, so but what is that? What is that? What is that moment when there's the after sex effect? Does that make sense? Contentment is you've reached the peak. Life force has reached the peak. We've reached the peak, and now we're starting to just come back down. We're just letting ourselves just float. We're gliding in that beautiful release, where we're gliding in the euphoria and the orgasmic effect. But now there's that wonderful sense of contentment. We're just content. And it's just beautiful. It's just gorgeous. And again, it's lovely to just let that go on, and you can float. If you can float about your day in that, you're just super duper. okay? But why not? Why not? Why not? Why not attune to that frequency of energy, get into that life force of contentment, and just allow yourself to be in that frequency, and then let that be bubbling away, bobbing away, humming away in the background. That you can just engage in that energetic connection and in the sensuality and the intimacy of it, but then as a living experience, not just in one moment, but it can become part of your everyday experience. Now, how does that happen? How that be more easily accessible? If you're staying engaged with your life force, you're letting it hum away in the background, and then in your life, you're in the limbering of it more in the ways of your life. You're in the peaks of it more, and you're more consciously in it. You really live in them. Does that make sense? You're fully in them. Is then there are natural times in the rooms with the people and the situations in your life where there are those times when there's the calming down moments of our life. Those moments when something has reached a peak and it's just that settling effect. So there's that natural rhythm that goes on. What would happen if you really lived the life force of that experience, and that you really enjoyed the value of just having that sense of contentment within yourself and just feeling the aliveness of it. And then you're living that. You're not attaching it to your life, you're living it in your life. And again, it's you're letting go of the attachments because you're moving into the direct connection of things. You're living the experience rather than in the struggle and the fight of it. And what I mean by that is, think about inhibitions is a lot of times inhibitions like to just do the same thing all the time. So do the same thing all the time. So we do this because I'm comfortable with this. This is the jacket I've got on. This is the way I'm moving this jacket. So in my inhibitions, this is the way I'll do it all the time. So it will work for a while, but then after it's just like photocopying. It gets a little bit more faded. It gets a little bit more jaded. Does that make sense? Is we're not living it as much anymore because in our inhibitions we're just like robots. We're in that empty behavior. Does that make sense? Is now think about, as you let go of your inhibitions, you'll still be doing the same thing. It's just your engagement with it is different. Is you're now really connecting in, you're coming into the sensuality, you feel your life force, you're now beginning to really activate your senses, really feeling the intimacy of it. Is now it's not an inhibited empty behavior anymore. It's a fully lived behavior. So whatever it is you're doing, you're fully living it, you're right in it. Is the life force in that is considerably different, because what you put out is what you get back. So the more you put this out, the more you get it back. And that's that transformational experience in your life, is that it begins to transform the experience. You don't necessarily, nothing has to change, but your engagement in it will create transformation. And it's that living life force coming in more and more. And again, this, by the way, the law of attraction. I'm sure most people have heard about the law of attraction. This is us getting into the nitty-gritty of that. Is that the more you put this energy out, well, then you'll attract that energy back. Is the more engaging you are, the more engagement you get back. So again, it's that living that spontaneous, creative life. Is and the subtle nuances of the life force is keep something that you do repeatedly, but it keeps it new because you're in the living of it. Does that make sense? It's wonderful. It just keeps, life just keeps renewing itself all the time. So if you're in this in the mundaneness of life, doing the repetitive things we always do, but if you're in the living of them, is life force keeps renewing that experience. It's a completely different experience. Okay, so now we have the cigarette moment, the content, the being content, and then we come back down to that lovely stillness, just a lovely peace. So think about that. Think about that peace. Do you ever notice? We can sleep better after sex? You have sex and you have very, very sound sleep. Is that we come to a place where we really come into that beautiful connection with ourselves, that lovely place of rest. And really what that is, that's our intimacy, our place of rest within ourselves. We're coming into the intimacy of that connection. And we can feel it. And it's beautiful. And it's gorgeous. what would happen if we went about our day staying connected to ourselves and staying in that intimacy and staying in the sensuality and the engagement of it, and that it was just we were contained and open at the same time. We're contained in it and we're open at the same time. And what I mean by that is that when we're in that type of experience, is we're content in it. We're peaceful, we're at rest in it. Is we feel the fullness of it, we feel the limbering of it, we feel the centering of our life force, we feel our life force in it, it makes for a very calm and relaxed person. It makes for a very joyous person, a playful, a creative person. So in that's what we're putting out, is you're more likely to get that back in return. Is that connection means the way we engage in our lives is very, very different. And there's the peace and the connection that comes in that brings us to a place where initially you'd say, Roy, keeping that life force engaged like that all the time seems exhausting. I couldn't do it. How can anybody do it? How is it possible to do? Think about if you rest into it, is that it becomes your place of rest, is that your life force is constantly on anyway. It's just a matter of whether we choose to focus on it or not. And our life force, if we don't focus on it, goes into attachments. So now all those attachments and the struggle in them, that's exhausting. That is exhausting. But we're used to it. And what would happen if you just come back to your life force, which is always on anyway, and we come back to it with awareness, and we just started to relax into that itself. And slowly but surely, inhibitions are letting go, so the attachments are letting go. And we're coming more and more into it. At one point, we realize this is actually where we actually feel our life force, where we feel alive, is why don't I just rest into this? Why don't I just make this part of my inner home? That this is where I reside. It's not a place I come to visit. This is a place where I live. I live here. So my consciousness and my energy, my life force, are aligned with each other. I'm attuned. I'm centered in the moment. I'm consciously in the moment. And now I'm in the living moment. And this is my place of rest. This is where I reside. And then soften into that. And the more you soften into it, that's where it begins to naturally take on a life of its own and radiate more and more into your life. And those subtle nuances that affect your life, is you'll start to recognize that, and you just follow them. You just follow that life force into your life, and the journey and the engagement of that, the curiosity, the playfulness. Even in the hurt of it, is where's the life force of the hurt? How do you release the hurt and come back to that beautiful, peaceful connection? So nothing is excluded, whether it's the pleasure or the pain, is both are included. And you want to get the pleasure and the pain working together, which means you need to understand both, how to stay grounded in both, how to meet the edges of both, how to control both, so that you can keep the one space for both, and they bind together so that it raises your energy, it raises your consciousness. So as you begin to activate your sacral chakra, then you start to spiral. You start to bind those energies together, and you start to raise your energy level up. And you're not just activating your sacral chakra, you're bringing life force through it. And the more we get into this, is again, we're going to be talking about the primal energy more. But again, this is the beginner's course. We're just establishing the basic foundation. We've got an intermediate, an advanced, and a mastering course to go through, where we start looking at the primal energy and start to activate our kundalini through it. Take that primal energy, bring it up, and begin to activate it consciously. Okay, but for now, we just need to center ourselves in it and begin to activate it. Okay, and these are steps that this is the systematic way through it. There's no point when you do big crazy energy practices where you can get the head blown off you. Oh, that was amazing. Okay, but then where's your ground in it? Where's your containment in it? There's a whole skill set that comes with being able to center yourself in this, to connect into the energy, and then begin to consciously raise it up, and to do it mindfully. and to be able to hold that space that you can channel it. Now it's the same discipline for each chakra, but the frequency, the energy within each chakra is different. So you'll notice I'm having the same conversations, but with each chakra it's a different frequency, it's a different quality of consciousness, it's a different quality of energy. Okay, but it's systematic. So that's why we're taking our time with this and we're teasing it out. There is no rush. You want to do it right, there is no rush. There's no shortcuts. You've got to really break it down and figure it out. Next week is we're going to bring in the 4 states of consciousness. Think about this, tapping into that spark of life force, into the source of it. Now, the unconscious mind is about our absolute potential. Imagine bringing our absolute potential into that spark. And then our subconscious mind treats everything as real. That's our ability to actualize. Now, imagine bringing your consciousness of actualization into that spark. Now, imagine doing it consciously. So you can begin to choose what you want to draw from your potential and actualize. Now you can consciously begin to actualize it. And that you're going into that super conscious state, where you're aligning yourself with the universal truths of life. Okay? Again, it's more to do with law of attraction, stepping into that space more and more, tapping into those deeper wells of consciousness and energy within ourselves. And again, we're exploring the primal energy more. Yeah. So until then, thank you very much.